Hi there, and welcome to another episode of African Business Stories, your insight into female innovators and entrepreneurs building and running businesses in Africa. I'm Akego Okoye, and on the show today, I'll be chatting with Flora Mutahi, founder and CEO, Melvin Marsh International, owners of the Kenyan household brand Melvins Teas. Flora trained as an accountant, but her desire was always to go into manufacturing. She came into the tea business just as the monopoly was being lifted. In the process of starting her business, she was asked, "Who do you think you are taking on these tea giants?" That was 25 years ago. Flora shares with us lessons on how she was able to build Kenya's largest flavored tea brand and how today she mentors young entrepreneurs. Let's get into it. Hi, Ms. Flora, and welcome to African Business Stories. So good to have you here. I mean, there's so much to cover. Maybe it would be best if we just start with you telling us about your journey. How did it all begin?
All right, good evening. Like I said, my name is Flora Mutahi. I am entrepreneur, something I love very passionately. And really, my journey began with a lot of indecision, I was just not sure what I wanted to do because 25 years ago, when I was starting my business, entrepreneurship was not something that was glorified in Kenya. It was around be a doctor, be a lawyer, be
Right.
a professional. And so business was taken to be for failures. So I was going through my school, my college life, as I was doing my A levels, the career master would always ask me, "What you gonna do?" And I said, "I want to do business." And he was like, "What was that?" And I couldn't actually express myself. I didn't even know the word entrepreneurship. I don't even think it was, anything out there. So after I he harassed me a lot, and I decided, well, my father said, "Listen, you're good in accounting, so say you're going to do accounting." So I said, "I'm going to do it." And that's what I ended up doing. I came out, I started doing my professional exams in accounting, and
Right.
I got a job in an accounting firm. And you begin at the bottom of the rank, which is auditing. So I go into auditing, and it was far out in the industrial area, dirty books. People come and say, "Please do write up my books and do my audit." And I was like, "Oh my gosh, what would it take for me to be that side of the table?" And I'd find myself, even when I would
Right.
go to audit the firms, and funnily enough, I did go to audit firms in the industrial area, so manufacturing firms, is during the breaks, I'd be on the floor and I'd forget to come back to do my work. And my boss would come and say, "What have you done?" And I'd be like, "Oops." I literally got carried away with these machines, and I'd ask the production managers, "How does this work?" And I saw several factories, doing this. So then, as I was doing my professional exams, one day, one of the deans of the campus calls me and says, "Come here, young girl. Who pays your fees?" And I was like, "What's that supposed to mean?" So he says, "It's obvious you're
Hmm.
not the one who pays your fees." And I said, "Why?" He says, "Because I've noticed you cut class, you barely pass. And he said, "Why are you doing this?" And I said, "Because I can't. I'm not sure what I want, but I know it's not this, but I'm not." And he really
Hmm.
challenged me and he said, "Listen, you're creating a habit that is going to follow you for the rest of your life. Be true to yourself. If this is not your calling, get out and go and find what it is." And I said, "Oh, I'll be killed. I'm still living at home." And, he was like, "I think you need to be true to yourself and to the ones around you." 2 days later, I wrote a letter and I quit. And of course, like I thought, everything happened, threats, "You're a failure," from my boss, who was my mom's friend. But they did take me in. It was not a lecture. It was a little around, "Are you sure you know what you're doing? What are you doing?" And to put myself in their
Hmm.
shoes, this is the child who doesn't really know what they want, but they know they don't want this. It was difficult, I guess, even for them. Um, so she told me a word I will never forget. So he's the one who told me, "Be true to
Right.
yourself." Then she told me that whatever you do, have a legacy, build something that has a legacy. And she showed me a couple of her clients who had done like trading, buying, selling this, that, and the other, whatever the flavor of the month was. And she said, look at their revenues now, they're down. So whatever you do, build a legacy. So with that nugget of thought, then I got home, and that was another story. We had a push and pull for 3 weeks with my parents. But in those 3 weeks, I had a friend who I kept telling, "This is what I think I want to do." And he helped me crystallize a lot of things. And so I came back and I said, I want to manufacture. And then it was the question, what? And I was like, I'm not sure. So again, I ran away and then I go and look and I came back and I said, we don't have free flowing salt in Kenya.
Let me pause you a little. So when you were, I mean, I read somewhere that you literally, after taking your exams, you literally only worked for 9 months.
Yes.
So I know that it took you, so from your story, it took you 2 days to writing that letter. But over that 9 month period, you were struggling with this whole idea of being an auditor, being an accountant. So it wasn't just the 2 days, right? It was throughout that period.
Yes, it was actually throughout from my A level, from my A levels. Then, of course, you know, when you're doing a
Right.
degree, you're doing a degree. So nobody bothers you at that stage. But as you're getting towards the end, there's always what's your path. And I said, oh, I'll be an accountant. So, yes, but definitely the 9 months were not even solid. I mean, I would misbehave. If I hear somebody's going to Hong Kong to buy stuff, I'm off. And I miss work for a week and I come back with a long story. And she just gave me a lot of grace. And, so definitely it was not my calling, but what it did for me is it helped me lay a very firm foundation. I mean, I guess I saw the space that I wanted to play in,
Right.
manufacturing. Obviously when it came to what do you want to do, I said I want to make something because I had seen it.
Make something.
Yeah, I mean, I had been into a factory that does wheelbarrows, sweets, cornflakes, nails. I mean, you name it. I had done quite a bit. So I had seen a lot. So I decided, and it's a habit that has followed me all along. I never go down the beaten path. I will always try to create something unique. So then I
Right.
said, free flowing salt is not in the country. And then, everybody's like, what's that? And I said, it's salt that flows freely. You don't have to keep adding rice in the salt shaker. And, the biggest question, when are you going to know how to do that? I said, I don't know. And then I said, listen, knowledge centers. So I went to the university, which was not too far from our house. And I met a
Hmm.
professor of food science and I introduced myself. And he's like, so have you studied food science? I said, no. And he said, so why are you in this space? And I said, because I can see an opportunity.
Hmm.
So I lived with that opportunity. Well, I sort of started learning with him. So he would teach in the morning, but in the afternoon he would tell me, "Come for the next 3 weeks. I'll teach you the principles of what you're trying to learn, which is the principles of mixing, how to mix. You can't just take a small quantity into a big quantity. You've got to graduate it." And then he said, "Now you need a ribbon mixer. So we're gonna get that." I said, "I don't know."
And was he teaching you for free? Was he
Can
teaching
you
you all this
imagine?
for free?
Can you imagine? I think he was completely fascinated by this child I mean, I went into his office, I introduced myself, and we would just chat for the next 3 weeks, every single afternoon. And from
Wow.
there, then he would send me to industrial area and I'd go find out who makes these machines. And then when I walked into, finally found people who would make them. They say, go bring us a design. We're engineers. We don't know. So then I had to find somebody who could make a design for me. And he said, there, I can't help you.
Right.
So again, I went out into town and I found an organization that helps SMEs, design. So they designed for me. All this is still for free. And I was still meeting
Wow.
a friend of mine who was an economist who was helping me like put together my ideas and document them and what goes before what. But interestingly, when I have all this put together, I come home. I was living at home and I tell my parents, okay, now I need money to start my business. And they're looking at me like, what could you be talking about? We took you to school, you quit on us, you're on your own. And I'm like, no. And they said, imagine you're on your own. So I didn't believe it because this is the first time I noticed that I'm female. Because my parents brought us up very equitably. My brothers cooked breakfast, I cooked lunch, somebody did dinner, somebody cleaned up. So I never ever felt that there are different scales. But to them, they said, listen, girls get jobs, girls get married. It's like, wow,
Wow.
okay. So I'm having to grapple with that. I'm having to grapple with not being at work. And I'm having to grapple with I need money. So then I went out again and I found an organization called Kenya Women Finance Trust that had a fund. They say that would
Right.
lend you money. And they said if you put up a security, they'll give you double. So I come home and I say, you just give them your security and they'll give me double the money. And they fought and they still said no. But anyway, eventually the female mother came around and just said,
Yay for
don't
moms.
tell your father, but this is what I'm going to do for you. So she goes to the bank and she interviews the manager and says, are you sure it is my security? So you're not giving her my money? No. So I'll put the security and you give her double, but your responsibility is to you too. And I said, okay. And so I signed off the documents and I got my money. Obviously not enough. So I cut it into little bits and I went and did some packaging. I went and bought some raw materials and I went and booked some machinery. And I don't have a location. So I come home and I tell my mom, oh, I've done this and I don't have a location. Fortunately, now she's an entrepreneur. She was an entrepreneur as well. So now she's getting a little roped in and she's like, okay, I'll do this for you. I will hire an office space in a mall, by the way, for 3 months, and then we'll see what you do. So we yanked in the machines in the evening. This particular mall was not doing very well. So the rents were good. So we yanked in the machines in the evening. I hired one guy, and so we came and would make the product during the morning, and then I'd go out and put it in my car and go selling in the afternoon. And I did that until, sort of I got the product into the few stores that I know. I mean, right now, in hindsight, it was like a drop in the ocean, but that's what I knew. I didn't know better. And so I started going around the hotels and I said, hotels need salt. And I went to this particular hotel and they said, we need 100 dozens. We are so excited with this product. I'm like, okay, but I don't have enough money. So I came home again and they're like, no, we gave you, So I was like, oh my gosh, what do I do? So my friend's mother, who was sitting at home at her house, and she said, what do you need? And I told her what I needed. And it was something like $300. And she said, okay. And I said, I'll give it back to you in a week. Because I figured it out by the time I make it, deliver it, get paid, a week. So I deliver and they tell me, and I give them the invoice and they say, thank you, come in 90 days. I'm like, 90 days? I had done no studying. I didn't understand the market. So they said, but that's how hotels pay. I'm like, what? So I decided I don't take no very easily. So I said, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wear these guys down. So I went every day asking for my money. And I got friendly with one of the managers. And then he started telling me, oh, my mom's doing tea. She's packing tea. There's a government monopoly that has been lifted. So she's doing tea. So basically you've got to, it would be interesting. So I looked and I said, why is she doing tea? I looked at the pricing and I said, I want to do tea because my salt is not working.
How long were you engaged in the salt business initially?
Before I realized that I need another product,
Yes.
2 months.
2 months.
Because salt is a very cheap commodity. So when I started looking at the offtake, I mean, a ton of salt was less than $100. So when I looked at the offtake, how people are buying, I'm thinking, this will never make me any money. So I said, okay, look, now what I'm going to do, and you should have seen my projections. They were huge. I was going to be a millionaire overnight. So I decided, okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get another product.
So you were looking for another product.
I had started to open my eyes to another product because in the 2 months, nothing was happening. And orders were going so slowly. A shop would take a dozen and I'd come back in a month and nothing, as maybe 2 packets have moved. Of course, remember, there's no brand building.
Right.
There's so much I didn't know. It's unbelievable. So then I do that, and then I immediately get to meet his friends, and he tells me all tea are done in Mombasa, which is at our coast. I can tell you, he told me on a Thursday, by Monday I was in that Mombasa. I went round. I asked the friends, how do I get registered? They said, you've got to be introduced. I said, can you introduce me? Same day, everything. And then
but you knew nothing about tea.
Nothing, but I've been told I have to register first. So I'm around registered. So the friends told me, they asked me, what do you want to do? Why are we signing you in? And I said, because I want to pack tea. And then they said, do you know what you're doing? And I'm like, no, but I'll find out. And they're like, we want to see you later. So after business, they said they needed to see me. And they told me something that never left me. They said, who do you think you are? How do you think you can just come into an industry and go up against a giant and a monopoly? So yes, the monopoly has been lifted, but how are you going to build your brand? And I was looking at them like, I just will. Of course, I have no clue what I'm saying. And it was a wake-up call for me. So on my way back from the coast, of course, because I had to bus it, I remember then coming back and thinking, I've got to do something different. And back to my being different. So I said, So I come home and then I'm like, ginger in my tea. And then I sit down. So this particular day, there's no ginger. I'm like, oh no. I go back to the shops. I buy the ginger. Then I said, there you go. How many people are like me? And I said, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put
Nice.
ginger in my tea. So that's what I did.
This is amazing. This is
Yeah. So I put ginger
amazing.
in my tea. And so I went back to the same lecturer and I told him, now we have a new project. So he's like, are you sure you even settled the other one? I said, no, they'll go together. You know? So we go into how do you do tea? And then he just told me he can only tell me the principles of dried goods and the principles of mixing, ginger and tea, but he doesn't know much about tea. So I go I think they're called they manage estates. They're a management agency, and I meet somebody there, and I say I need to learn about tea, how to taste tea, how to blend tea, and I tell him what I want to do, and he says, if you were not getting into it, we could have helped you, but right now we can't. So I said, you've got to help me. There's no school. What am I going to do? So he's very kind. He told me what you do is, anyway, since nobody knows you and you're so young, just come in here for the next 3 weeks, 8 o'clock every morning, taste 100 cups of tea and we'll teach you. And that's what I did for 3 weeks.
Wow.
Every morning I'd go there and do 100 cups of tea and learn, and I learned all that. And this time I'm still talking to Mombasa. I'm trying to decide what would my brand be. How am I going to package it? So I think within another 2-3 months, I had another product in the market.
Really?
So I take it out to sell. And the gentleman of there was the largest supermarket called Uchumi at the time. And I walk into this guy and I tell him I want to sell. So first he's like, how old are you? Why are you doing business? What made you choose business? You're never going to get married. What are you doing? I mean, I got this lecture like half an hour and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, really? So I leave there really depressed because they're the largest buyers. And then I get a call next morning, 7:30. He didn't even wait for 8 o'clock. And he says, bring me the ginger tea. I'm not interested in the other one. I have enough. I'm like, you serious? And he's like, yes, I want 20 cases. So quickly I have to go and make 20 cases of the product. So I made it and I delivered it. And then slowly again, I started putting it in all the outlets. And then lesson number 3, I'm thinking, these products are not moving. What do I do? So I decided I'm going to start marketing them. I'm not really sure what I'm doing. So I would actually now, I said, people have got to taste it. So I started making the tea, putting it in thermoses, and then I would go to the supermarkets and make the owners taste so they buy. But then I said, I've got to reach the consumer. So then I said, because the supermarket, I didn't know the dynamics of how to work it in supermarkets, I started going to all the markets. So open air markets. So I'd go into the open air markets with thermoses and I'd sit with the ladies there and I'd let them taste the tea and I'd sell it to them. And every day there was an open air market somewhere. And then on Saturdays, I decided, listen, just take my big pick. I sold my car and got a pickup and I put some comedians on it. I hired 2 comedians and every Saturday we'd just go around talking about the product. And then I made this big
Wow.
size product of, package, a box or a dummy of my product, and I'll just drive it around everywhere I'd go.
So that's so interesting. Just backing up a bit. So it's called Melvin's Tea.
Yes.
And so what's the inspiration behind the name Melvins?
This was in the 90s when Kenya, based on our history, remember we were colonized by the British. It was just fancy to have a foreign sounding name. So I just thought, I liked the name Marsh Limited. When I was told to come up with a company name, I said Marsh. Then I said, no, what is going to rhyme with Marsh? And actually, we are sitting down now with my mother, who now is completely on my boat. Now we're together and we are friends. And we said, listen, we go to bed tomorrow morning. We have to have a name because we're going to register it. And we woke up, and I think she's the one who suggested, how about Melvin? Melvin rhymes with Marsh. And that was it. So when I went to the designer to sort of do a packaging for the salt first and then the tea, they said, what's your brand name? And I said, it can only be Melvin's. It sounds nice and foreign and everything. And by the way, for at least, I think 10 years, people thought it was an imported product, which was positive at the time. Today, of course, Africans are proud to be African and we're proud to be Kenyan and have Kenyan
Yeah.
sounding. But, we registered at that time. So, of course, I've always thought of creating a story about who Melvins is, my grandfather. And I said, listen, just be honest. Just mystery man, tea taster.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, yes, I think honesty pays. So that's very interesting.
Yeah.
And with how spontaneous you have been, I'm not surprised that you made up a name in 24 hours. Not surprised at all. Um, so so in terms of, I mean, do you think you were lucky in those early days? What do you think helped you get through, those early days of building a business with such limited resources
Resources and knowledge,
and
and
knowledge? Yeah.
I would put it down to, I guess the market was not very crowded at the time.
Okay.
But I'd also put it down to just tenacity. I don't take no for an answer very easily. And also around creativity. So if I hit a bump, I would, in fact, I like saying my answers come in a shower. I take a shower quickly, I've got another answer, and I have another one, and I have another one. I'm just, so it's really around just being tenacious. And I speak a lot to people. I am just one, and I keep telling people, do not fear asking questions. Don't fear reading. If you look at my library, it's just full of all these self-help books, marketing, merchandising. Think if I don't understand a topic, I will make sure I understand it, and I will go to the professional to make sure I understand it. So it's
Mm,
really about building yourself,
right.
because these are not things you learn in school. As much as I did a business of a commerce degree, these are not things. Well, you learned the theory, so I guess it was not foreign. But the actual practice, I will not stop. I will not hesitate to call somebody in. I remember when I was starting, I didn't understand marketing very well, so I remember calling a corporate friend of mine who worked in a multinational, and I said, I need you to help me corporatize my business. And I would just meet her every Saturday morning, and she'd just walk me through the principles and tell me, listen, you've just got to get your product in people's hands. And today I mentor women, incidentally,
Yeah.
women in manufacturing. I'm very passionate about that. And that's what I keep telling them, always be selling, always, always, always. Look at where is your customer? How do you find your customer? Put yourself in front of your customer and let the customer decide.
Hmm. So
Yeah.
so compared to then, what kind of challenges do you face today with growing your brand as compared to the challenges you had 25, 30 years ago? What kind of challenges do you face today?
Today, my challenges are around scale
Hmm.
because um, I'm very, very driven. So I want to scale, I want to grow, but I can only do so much now. So I've gotten a team. So I'm finding myself spending a lot of time. How do I achieve results through a team? And the
Right.
team just gets bigger. And then how do I achieve results through that team? And what I really like, I mean, my ideal is really to have a system, a machine, as opposed to relying on Peter who's good today and John who's not good tomorrow. I would rather build systems and processes that anybody can turn around. And I think multinationals are the ones who have really hammered this down to a science,
Hmm.
where anybody can run the system. Well, no, okay, in quotes,
Right.
but really, really, that's my biggest challenge, because now it's you're doing marketing, but you're doing it at a bigger level. You're doing
Hmm.
sales, but you're doing them at a bigger level. You were
Hmm.
asking me earlier about exports. I mean, it's easy to walk around in your own country, but when you have to start walking around in other countries, it's not that easy. Where do you go? Who do you go to?
Yeah,
How do you?
talk to us about that because I did read that. I mean, you started the company in 1995, but it was in 2004, I think, that you
Mhm.
made your first move abroad. So talk to us about that process of selling it in other markets.
Yeah, it was what I did is, because it's very, very expensive to do, of course, I would look for these grants for women entrepreneurs or just for SMEs, and I would get onto those programs. And I remember USAID was running a lot of them, where you even bring a
Yeah.
consultant, help you actually, are you exportable? Do you have the right certifications? Is your packaging right? And then they would help you get registered. I think at the time we were aiming for America, get registered with FDA. And I landed there and I put my product there, and I went for an expo. I went to several expos, and you get what first-hand feedback. First one is, you're coming out of Kenya, your product has got a British name. So I said, okay, so I have
Hmm.
to create a brand for here. So I did Karibu tea. Karibu means welcome in Swahili. So I
Oh.
get onto FDA, and before I know it, I have a legal letter from Caribou, the coffee, saying that I'm passing off with their name. And Caribou, the animal, the CA. I'm like, really, guys? Mine is with a K. And my lawyer just told me it's not worth the drama. Change your name. So then I said, okay, fine. That's a big investment. So then I decided, let me go with the diaspora, Kenyan diaspora who knows the product from here. So that's what I've tended to do. So right now, a lot of my exports are driven by third party. It is only now we
Okay.
actually want to go and take presence in those countries. Of course, unfortunately, um, what do you call it? COVID has come at a time when this was the year that we were really going to step out big in exports. But we still do have our third party agents, out there selling in several countries. But it's a challenge, and I think that's what I would say is my challenge now. It's I believe the challenge of the bigger are just bigger challenges of the same. It's the same marketing, funding, knowledge. Um, of course, now I don't have a problem with the product. I've had several journey. I've had a journey with the product. From you know the way
Hmm.
people make tea and the way you think people should make tea are different. So sometimes I'll do my blend how you're supposed to make tea, but we don't make tea like that. We just put milk and water and then you throw in the tea. But you're supposed to make tea black and then when it's brewed, then put in the tea. But hey, that's not how it happened. So there were lessons like that I learned along the journey that really helped me improve my product. And that's why today, when I talk to my
Hmm.
mentees, I tell them always be front facing, speak to your consumer every day and twice on Sunday.
Hmm. I like that. I like that. So I hear you opened a tea
Yes, I
house.
did. I did about
What brought that
6 years
about?
ago. The retail trade takes your money and keeps it for some time. So I said, how about I teach people how to drink tea? How about I play around with different recipes, make tea fun? Because in Kenya, tea is known as an at-home drink. You drink tea at home in the morning and in the evening and when guests come. But when you go out,
Hmm.
you'll always say, let's go out for tea, but you'll take coffee or a juice or milkshake. So I said, this is what I'm going to do. So we opened this tea house 6 years ago with beautiful recipes. What we had a mocha with tea and drinking chocolate. We had milkshakes out of tea. We even started little cookies made out of tea. We were aiming for cakes and everything. But I think the way we structured ourselves, the more we chose, and how we chose to set up, didn't really work for us. I think if you want to sell
Hmm.
tea, a tea house is not does selling only tea is difficult. You need to sell tea and food, and we had not structured ourselves like that. So we've taken a bit of a chill pill on that, and we're going to look at it differently now. We're probably going to go into smaller units where we just serve tea and continue to make tea fun. But it was lovely when it
Hmm.
lasted, and we were also actually aiming when we were coming out of there. We were aiming to go into either busier spots or mobile units and stuff. But right now with COVID, I
Okay.
think we've shelved that for a minute.
And I know that you have this whole idea about single origin
Mhm.
tea. So can you talk to us a little bit about
Okay,
that?
you mean the tea? Yes, the 95% of the tea grown in Kenya is sold out in bulk. I guess Africa
Okay.
historically was set up to supply the world of resources, and we haven't moved through the value chain. So when I was setting up my business, that was really my passion. I was saying, listen, I want to see my tea or Kenyan tea out in shelves in the supermarkets because today when you go out, you do see Kenyan tea with various brands and supermarkets, but it's not 100%, which is where the whole idea of
Hmm.
single origin came from. And that still remains my passion. I think if today if you ask me what's my goal, it still remains my goal. I do know
Okay.
value addition has improved. I think we are now 3% of the tea is already going out in value added form. And when I was chairperson of Kenya Association of Manufacturers, and really even the government and everything, we really pushed a lot to make sure, and we still do, that we do take this commodity seriously and move up the value chain. Um, so, hopefully it's something that we are going to continue doing as a country because obviously we're leaving a lot of value on the table when we are selling it out in bulk.
Yeah, yeah, that's very true. I mean, I do some work around the AFCFTA,
Okay.
and I can imagine that once that is up and running, it will make a big difference for manufacturing and moving goods and services around the continent. And I'm sure, and I know Kenya is leading the way in terms of manufacturing. So yeah, so we hope that these numbers will
Yeah.
shift slightly. You just mentioned that you were chairperson of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. I did see that, and there's a program I know for women in manufacturing in Kenya, and I was just wondering what the landscape is like today for women in business, entrepreneurs, and women in manufacturing in Kenya. What's the landscape like?
They say, I think it's something like okay, I can't remember what the percentages are, but a huge percentage, something like 85% of micro and small businesses are women. Are
Women,
women,
yes.
and that's just entrepreneurs in total doing business of in some form or other. We don't particularly have the numbers for manufacturing, but I keep saying a lot of women manufacture. They just don't realize it. Whether I make my side hustle is to make crisps, to make potatoes, to make sweaters and sell them, whatever. It is manufacturing. And so the problem I see is women are in businesses, unfortunately, smaller businesses that they don't scale up, because the reason women set up businesses usually is not to grow big, which I think tend to find what men do. They sort of start businesses,
Mm,
maybe they just want to have more flexibility around their home, or they're just tired of business, they want to chase their passion, but it's not always around money, and I want to see my huge industry. So I tend to find women in manufacturing are very few. And that's how, when I was at the helm of Kenya Association of Manufacturing, we began a program with the CEO, who was also a lady, called Women in
mm,
Manufacturing. And we were just taking all these women and telling them, guys, you guys are manufacturers. So can we scale? What are your challenges? So, capacity building, getting funding for them if it's funding, capacity building, knowledge sharing, standards and building standards, and it's still growing, it's still moving. And I don't know if you read much about Kenya. Also, our government right now is very, very keen on the growing the SME, because it is the engine
mm,
of any economy. So basically, I think we've seen a lot of traction, a lot of women sort of starting to scale up, but they're not enough large, very few actually, large
mm,
manufacturers, but there are a lot of women actually doing it. So our idea is to really see if we can nurture it, and we also want to go down to the schools, because you tend to find STEM education is more left for the men, the boys, even in schools. So a girl will be told, oh, food science, go do law, go do something, as opposed to, why isn't she being encouraged, if she's strong in the sciences, to remain there?
mm,
The other thing we tend to find with women in manufacturing, even the corporate women who work in manufacturing, when they come out, they want to go into consultancy. And I'm like, listen, guys, you understand the space. Why can't you be a manufacturer when you get out? So those are the conversations we
right.
began having. And by even having the multi women in multinationals who have really grown, they're heading the organizations. We have fireside chats with them to just help them, help women really come to terms with heavy manufacturing. It's not a male, it is male dominated, but it doesn't mean you can't play there.
Mm,
Especially, you find somebody's got 18 years under their belt, and then they say, I want to be a consultant. And you're like, please, really? So
right.
I'm encouraged. And my mentorship program for Melvins is exactly around that as well, where we are helping women, young women in manufacturing scale up. So, like for me, if they're having challenges opening up markets, I'll give them access to my team. If they're not understanding how to calculate their stock levels, I'll give them access to my team, because it helps my team grow, it helps us grow, it keeps us on our toes.
Mm.
Actually, I'm really, really motivated by that program.
Please, can you tell us a bit more about that? So Melvin's has a mentorship
Yes, we have a
program.
mentorship program where I have a group. I think we've just finished one cohort of about, I
Okay.
think, 12 it is, and I think we have another almost 15, 20 going on right now. So it's a quick 8 weeks we just hit every
Okay.
single, if it's marketing, tomorrow we're doing operations. So every week for 8 weeks, we have sessions. I'm supported by some consultants. And then after that, then they're off to market and we ask them to give us, tell us a challenge. So if one of the ones we've seen is somebody wants a door opened, I'm trying to get into Carrefour, I don't know who to speak to. So I link them up with, I call the buyers at Carrefour and say, listen, I have these women, they want to whatever, can you give them some space? And so far so good. Some have entered, others are selling natural hair products. I called one of the largest lady, a lady who has a chain of hairdressing salons. And she said, let them come. And I know one of them, she already gave an order. So it's really just to
Wow.
see what I have. If I could make somebody's journey easier and quicker so that they scale faster, I think that would really, really give me a lot of satisfaction. I mean, somebody even mentioned the other
Hmm.
day, from when I started, I've got so much drive. I guess I'm seeing myself
Clearly,
25 years ago.
clearly you do. So is this mentorship program just for women in Kenya?
Funny you ask. We did have three from Tanzania, and I think we also have another three from Tanzania again. So no, it's not. It's for the region. We actually said Kenya, Uganda, Tanzania. So Tanzania somehow are the ones who came on, and I remember the Tanzanian ladies were doing. One was doing cleaning soaps and sanitizers just during the COVID season. So she was saying, I'm so busy." So we were helping her sort out her, her issues.
Right.
It was lovely. I mean, it's really really fruitful. Yeah, and helping people move it from a side hustle to a main business.
Do you have any other products? Have you tried out any other products, or have we stayed with the salt and the tea?
We did one time in '04. One of the largest supermarkets, the one that had given me the big order, said, we like the way you package your stuff. Can you package for us rice on contract, contract packing? It's like, rice? I know nothing about it. They said, well, find out. So I found out about rice. I went and Chinese, you know how they do the really good whatever. I got a machine, I brought it in. And before I knew it, we were humming huge orders. And it's a commodity,
Oh, wow.
so you have to buy. And the raw material was in one of the farms, so I'd be driving out there, and it was challenging and interesting for about 2 years, 2 years. But then the supermarket started getting into some cash flow issues, and what happened
Oh,
is I couldn't afford to run the business. And I remember going to a financial institution, and I meet this guy and I said, I need money. And he says, why? And I explained to him, and he says, let me see your balance sheet. So he looks at my balance sheet and he laughs and he says, you know what? Your money is in trade. I said, yeah, but they're not paying me. And he says, then make them pay you. I said, oh, I've been trying. He's like, no, you're not trying hard enough. And he says, do you have a board? And I said, a what? And he says, a board of directors. I said, no, that's for the large companies. And he says, no, it's not. Can you put together a board? I will join your board, and call me within a month. And I went quickly, did my homework, and I came back and I said, okay, here. I took somebody in corporate, two people in corporate and him, and we started having board meetings. I called them advisors because of the fiduciary responsibility. I didn't want to go there. And till today, I have that board of advisors. And the first thing they did is they said, you don't have a clear debtors policy. You're allowing you and your people to be bullied. And from there, they started pointing out, do you have standard operating procedures? And they really helped me corporatize my business. And that's another thing I keep
hmm.
telling these youth: you don't have to think alone. In fact, I remember when I used to have those meetings, the next day I could take the day off because they helped me make up to address so many challenges that I'd been carrying. And I'd be like, phew, phew,
Hmm.
phew, phew, oh, it was lovely. Really, really nice. So that's another nugget
Wow.
I got along the way.
And what do you say to young people today, about how they choose to start the business, and run their businesses?
I don't think there's any shortcut to knowledge. You have to have it. Like you
Hmm.
say, I was lucky, but was I really? Because I paid the price of, growing slowly. I actually did not
Right,
grow quickly. I
right,
remember somebody asking me recently, what would I do? How, if I were to do it again, what would I do? And I would say I would have invested heavier and grown faster. But I didn't know. So I was
right.
I was busy learning. Today, what I would tell people is learn, 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 ask, 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 teach yourself. There's so much out there, so much. teach yourself, ask people, get a mentor, get a board of advisors. You don't have to think alone. But always, there's no excuse, like I say, to knowledge. It's, even in a court of law today, you can't say, I didn't know. Nobody cares. So you really have to know knowledge. Knowledge is important, and always be learning. And I keep telling people that I am always doing something or the other. In fact, the other day I was saying I'm COVID out because of how many. No, I'm zoomed out because of how many. I'm in this, I'm in that, I'm in the other. And so I started saying, gosh, now I have to prioritize what I have to do. And what I've done now is I've given it to my team, and then I say, I want a summary. So all I have to do is read the summary. And what I do know is
Right.
because they have to give me a summary, then they've listened, which is a win-win then for everybody. So it's been
Hmm.
brilliant. I've really enjoyed the learning. And for me, by the way, if I'm not learning, I'm not challenged. Yeah, I get bored
Right.
very, very,
Right.
very quickly. So I think for me, I just tell the youth to just keep learning.
So, what's your approach to recruitment, to employing people? What's your approach to that?
I think the best advice I've ever heard is I'm not sure who said it, but they said be slow to hire and quick to fire. I was a mess. Incidentally, I would hire somebody because they talked well and they presented well, and then they don't deliver, and I couldn't tell them. This is when I was young, and then I couldn't fire them. So fortunately, my mom is an entrepreneur. So what I'll do is I'll say, I don't like the way so and so is working. So she'd pop by and speak to them. And then she'd pop by again and speak to them. And then we'd just say, okay, this one has got to go. So she says, fire them. And I'm like, I can't. So so what she would do is she would come and fire them. And then I couldn't go to work for 3 days because I couldn't face them. I was a thorough mess at the beginning. But slowly I toughened up, and especially incidentally, when I started meeting people, HR specialists, they say, no, but you don't have to do it badly, help people understand their weaknesses, agree targets with them. And when they're not meeting the targets, speak about it and just say, hey, listen, so and so, we agreed. So you have agreed that you're not doing this. You've agreed that you've not treated. So even by the time you're separating, it's clear, the person, you're not ambushing somebody.
Hmm.
And for me, that has been one of the best pieces of advice I got. The other one we've started doing is I don't interview alone. I interview, and then I would get my mother. She was a silent director, incidentally, so she would interview, and then whoever department that person is coming to work in, they would interview as well. But when it was only me, it would do me and my mother. Then I started calling HR specialists to ask them, what kind of questions would you ask?
Hmm.
So they'd say ask stuff like, what are they in their family? Okay, I know now these days, apparently you can't ask too many personal questions, but if you start understanding somebody's pecking order, like a lastborn can either be very responsible or tend to be very irresponsible. Firstborns or people who are supporting already their family, people who have taken themselves through college tend to be very responsible. So the little things that I learned along the way to ask. But again, I read a lot, and of course now we can afford it. Now you have to go through interviews, psychometrics, and I still get it wrong. I remember this recently. There's this person I really liked, and we even allowed him to come into a meeting because we were so sure we were going to hire him. But the psychometric was totally opposite. And there's a question: do we trust or not? And I said, listen, I'm not going to go against the psychometric testing
Right.
because there's a reason, and I had to let it go. So people are your biggest asset, but can also be you can that I think that's where you can make the easiest mistakes, because 1 plus 1 is not always 2.
Right. Right. That's very
Yeah.
interesting. I wanted to ask how you found, I know that you have three children, and I wanted
Yeah.
to ask how you've balanced raising children and building this business over the last 25 years.
Well, yeah, okay, it helped, I guess, that I started the business before I
Before
got my
you had
kid.
kids, yes.
Yes, so that was easy. So I remember I would send mails, and then they would tell me, "Was that you awake at 2 o'clock?" And I'm like, "2." I mean, I had no clue. As in, I would just work. So, initially that was easy. And then I met my husband, got the children, and the business was already, I think, 8 or 9 years old. So it wasn't too difficult. And the minute I got my children, incidentally, I stopped working on Saturdays.
Okay.
And then I stopped doing late nights. But sometimes when the kids go to bed, then I'll start working again. Then I'll get into trouble with the hubby. So it's really about give and take. So I don't work weekends. I actually don't work both weekends, Saturday, Sunday, and I try not to work in the evenings. But when I was at the helm of Calm, that's a lot of corporate meetings, cocktails, business. There's always stuff to do. What I would do is try and have. I keep telling people there's no day you'll have a full. There's no okay. Take a week. You're not gonna have a good balance, but you balance it on. You take a longer term view. So let's say I hadn't been able to be home on Monday and Tuesday, then I guard the rest of the week
Right.
very jealously and make sure. The other thing I would do is for children's special days, plays and things. I remember being in one of the meetings. Remember, it's still male dominated.
Right.
At one of the meetings, and we were supposed to review this guy, and he said he has got to go for a child's meeting. And somebody said, "What? Why would he do it? Why can't his wife go?" And so I realized, this is not going to be taken kindly. So all I did is when I had really those kind of meetings, it became a meeting. So I'd actually pick my bag and say, I have a meeting to attend and it's starting at 10. Sorry, guys. And I walk.
Wow.
So it's really about knowing your priorities. But I must say something. You then have to have a very strong support. So I sat down and I decided shopping can be done by anyone.
Right.
The bread will not change. The milk will not change. The house stuff will not. So I had this house help who we had, I would call her an au pair, really. We had trained her to drive, and she was very sharp.
Okay.
I think it's just those people who missed an opportunity in life. So she used to manage my home 100%. I would wake up and I would say, I could call her 2 and say, incidentally, I'm having some visitors for dinner. I forgot to tell you, they're 10. And the question was always like, are they local? Are they foreigners? So that we know what to cook. And she'd go ahead and do everything. So I think a support system is really important. My husband also played a big role. I would just tell him, listen, I can't do homework with the kids. I just can't even think. So please do it. And he would. So it's really important to have a really strong support. When I would travel, in case he's also busy, so if he traveled, then I'll just dump the kids on my mother or my brother, and go around life. So I think strong support, people who understand, people who don't make you feel bad. I don't think at any time did my husband or my children really make me feel, really, mom, that you're choosing. But it also means you have to keep communication channels open and really question yourself a lot and ask yourself what's important. So that then meant, unfortunately for me, that a lot of my social life is what suffered. My friends, my girlfriends. But I just said, guys, please forgive me. If you love me a lot, let me just do this. It's a season, and it will pass. And it has passed, and I have caught up with them.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's good to know. I've taken a lot of mental notes as I work my own journey. And so finally, I wanted to ask Miss Flora, what's next for you? What's next for you? You've built this fantastic, impressive business. You're mentoring people. You're supporting your government, and I wonder what's next.
I think just a bit more of the same, because I love what I do. I wake up with a smile on my face. I love challenges. Some get you down, but I love what I do. So I will continue to serve. I will continue to grow people. Right now for the business, what I'm doing is taking more of I step back. Of COVID was the best thing that came out of COVID was Zoom meetings, working from home. Because I remember I do have a mentor, and one of the times he said, listen, are you sure you need to go to the office every day? How are you going to grow people if you're there? And I kept telling him, I don't know what I would do at home. And then came in COVID, and now I know what I would do at home. And it's interesting. Those are my thought days. So there are days I just don't go in at all. And I sit down 8 o'clock at the table. I actually even work harder than when I'm in the office. And it's really just thinking, where are we going? What am I doing? How am I growing this? Why is this not moving? So I'd come back and tell my team, I want to start mentoring you guys. So once a week I do a call-in, or if I'm there physically, I actually mentor somebody on what their role, how I see their role. They tell me how they see my role. So it's been really brilliant, actually, being able to take a step back and grow from behind. And I really think that's what leadership is. Leadership is not what I was, where I would ask you to do something. If you haven't done it, I jump in and we get it done. Leadership is really challenging them, pushing them, helping them grow
Right.
so that they can carry more of the load and the weight. So really, I think for me, that's what's there for me. But I do have a real estate company
Okay.
that I run. I run with my husband. He's an architect, so it was the next obvious thing to do.
Wow.
It's not been as successful as Melvin's, but it's another challenge. So that's also another area I spend my time, and I keep making people laugh. I know how to sell products that are in my name. Now this is service that is in nobody's name, so it's a totally different ball game. But again, remember, I like challenges.
Mm.
So I think those are the things I'm going to do next. And of course, now my children are growing, so the mentorship is also coming through them because I'm a doer. I like stuff getting done.
Right.
So I'm really finding I'm slowing down now and really being very pensive, just thinking, how do I achieve what I want to achieve? And I believe then I'll get the kind of growth I want. I actually want quantum growth now. Now that I
Yeah.
have the platform, now I want quantum. I'm saying this is not enough. I'm gonna go. And then I'm finding myself thinking, why didn't I know that before?
Hmm.
I could have been so much further.
Yeah. And I think, to be honest, a lot of people have said that this COVID just forced everyone to stop,
Yes,
and process and reset. And
and get
I
out of
feel
this
like a
rat
lot of
race.
great things will come out of what seems like such a tragic situation. I feel like there would be a lot of growth for a lot of people.
Yeah,
But thank you so much, Miss Flora. It's been amazing. Thank you so much.
thank you for for the interview, and I wish you all the best.
That was Flora Mutahi, founder and CEO, Melvin Marsh International, owners of Melvins Tea, Kenya's largest flavored tea brand. There were so many lessons in this story. The power of never taking no for an answer, intentionally seeking out opportunities, and not being limited by an initial lack of industry knowledge. The importance of giving back and the value of mentoring. We celebrate women like Flora who are blazing the trail for female entrepreneurs in Africa. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please head on over to Apple Podcast or iTunes and leave us a review. It will make a difference to the work we're doing. I'm Akego Okoye, and you have been listening to African Business Stories.